In the previous video, we plotted the least squares regression equation. Now we're going to define, as you see in part B, we're going to interpret and define R, the slope, and y-intercept. So R, you should be pretty familiar with that. We've already covered that. So R being negative 0.8150, I'm going to say miles driven for Ford F-150s and price have a negative, strong, linear relationship, or let's back up. Let's say correlation. I mean, you could say relationship, but I want to be more specific. Correlation, and then I'll just say comma, negative 0.8150. Should be familiar with that one. Let's talk about B, the slope. There is a decrease of 0.1629 in price, because that's our y. So if you're struggling with this, throw that slope over 1, and remember slope is change in y over change in x. So I described the y in terms of the slope that the linreg gives us on the calculator. So there's a decrease of 0.1629 in price for every 1 mile driven. That's something that if you don't understand, I'm sorry to say, you really just need to memorize it. So you take the slope that it gives you and you attach that value to the y context, in this case the price of the Ford F-150, and you say that if it's positive, you say there's an increase. If it's negative, you say there's a decrease in that for every one, whatever the x context is. So for every 1 mile driven. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to erase so I have some space to define the y-intercept, or interpret the y-intercept. Let's put that where I had correlation. And hopefully you're super familiar with a y-intercept. That's where x is 0. Sometimes it's a plausible value, sometimes it's not. In this case, having an x of 0, I would say is plausible because that's miles driven. This truck could very well have 0 miles driven. So it is estimated that the price is $38,257.10 for 0 miles driven. I hope all that makes sense. We have a lot more to talk about. These are the basics. So hopefully you're a master at slope and y-intercept. All we're doing is putting context with it. So I hope these make sense. You have these videos, watch them again and again if needed, although that sounds kind of boring to me. But hopefully you don't have questions. If you do, my door is always open. Email me, set something up if you're virtual, or come in any morning at 7:35. We'll talk about it. Look for an assignment over this. Talk to y'all later.